All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome back to Recovery Live. C4 Innovations is thrilled to bring you another Recovery Live event. And if you've attended previous events with us, you know that we try to bring top-tier speakers, interesting and challenging issues, and then creative strategies that help peers and non-peers alike in improving the lives of others. Recovery Live events also try to identify and elevate the voices of individuals that might not be immediately recognized nationally, but in fact, who may be perhaps the best suited to identify the challenges and barriers they've been encountering, as well as the successful strategies that they've used to support those with behavioral health challenges every day. This often unheard but critically important voice was one of the primary reasons we started Recovery Live several years ago, and we will continue with this tradition moving forward. Because we know that what is happening at the street level can evolve, adapt, and change in the blink of an eye. Just think COVID. Hearing from those who can alert us to trends and new challenges allows us to get ahead of issues or those challenges and then be proactive rather than reactive. Next slide, please. Actually, take us 2 slides, I think. One more, there you go. We at C4 Innovations, or C4 for short, are committed to advancing recovery, wellness, and housing stability for people who are marginalized. We are committed to reducing disparities and achieving equitable outcomes. And we engage, support, and partner with service organizations, with communities, and with systems to develop and implement research-based and evidence-based solutions that are always person-centered, recovery-oriented, and trauma-informed. You can learn a lot more about the work C4 does by visiting our website at c4innovates.com. And if you're inclined, please consider following us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Next slide. Today's Recovery Live events, like all of those in the past, are interactive, and you engage directly with our presenters and each other through the live chat box. Our speakers are going to share some of their initial thoughts, and then they're going to answer questions that all of you are going to raise during this event. Now, all you audience members are in a listen-only mode, and you can introduce yourself and pose questions and share ideas and resource links, and we really encourage that. And you can let us know that any tech difficulties that you might be having by typing them into the chat box, if that's possible for you. If you need to send a private message to the host, please be sure that you've used the drop-down arrow and select all panelists in order to get your message directly to them. But we want you all to participate in that chat to the extent that you feel comfortable. And to do that, you simply need to make sure that hosts and attendees are selected. And I believe that is what the default setting is anyway. And then your message goes out to everybody in the event. To access the chat, just click the word chat on your screen. That chat box is going to pop up. You can resize it if you want. You can click and drag it around. You can move it mostly out of the way of other content on your screen. Next slide. Today's event is going to last 1 hour. It's being recorded, and that recording link is going to be shared with everybody who registered after this event. It's also going to be available on the C4 YouTube channel listed on the slide. If, as you're listening to this content, you feel like your organization could use some technical assistance around this or any other topic, absolutely feel free to email us at training@c4innovates.com. We're really happy. We're excited to discuss your needs, your brains, and brainstorm some strategies and solutions. We'll work together with you to determine the best technical assistance available to meet your individual needs. Slide 6, please. All right, let me bring us all back to the reason we're here today, because once again, we're beyond fortunate to have the 3 speakers on your screen today, and they're all going to be talking about workforce readiness and peer professionalism. And today's speakers have both professional and lived experience around this topic. Our discussion today should help you obtain a deeper understanding of the challenges and the strategies and efforts to assist peers in really being fully ready to enter and participate within the highly professionalized behavioral health workforce. While peer support itself is not intended to be a professional role, the actions and behaviors of peers working within this workforce must be able to participate in a professional manner as they carry out those informal supports and services. So to dive deeper into this whole topic, I'm really pleased to introduce today's speakers. We've got Raquel Garcia, who is the founder of Hard Beauty, located in Larkspur, Colorado. We have Julia Mullins. She is a substance use and housing specialist with Bluegrass Community Action in Central Kentucky. And then we've got Dr. Cheryl Gagne. She is a senior associate with C4 and is located in Boston. Now, before we get underway, please be sure to add any questions or comments you might have into the chat, as we will be moving into a Q&A session after the speakers have shared their initial thoughts. Excuse me. All right, on to what we're here for. Cheryl, can you get us started today?
Sure. Are we ditching the slides? Yep, good. All right, no more slides for a while anyway. We're just going to talk. So I'm Cheryl Gagne. As Stephen said, I have a doctorate in psychiatric rehabilitation. What brings me to this topic is more my master's program, where I got a master's in psych rehab with a specialization in supported employment. So I was an early adopter, brought into it through university, of supported employment for people with, who were diagnosed with very serious mental illnesses. They were described as people with psychiatric disabilities. So difficulties as a result of a lot of, issues having to do and maybe not having to do directly with the mental illness. Anyway, so that made me a real passionate believer in the rights of everyone who wants to work. I mean, it really was sort of a civil rights issue in a way. And we were popular in conservative administrations because it was like, get the people off the welfare roll, dole. So they like supported employment. And the more liberal administrations thought this, a person's right to work was sort of baked into the American way. So you saw the, Americans with Disabilities Act came out after. Anyway, so there was that. And then my own lived experience. I'm a person in recovery from substance use disorder and mental illness. I've been, working at my recovery since the age of 25. Which means several decades of my life. So I come to this presentation with those two kind of perspectives, very similar, but there's some difference. So in supported employment, the term readiness is a dirty word because it's seen as exclusionary. You can't come into paid employment till you're ready, and I'm not saying, there may be times for internships and kind of work practice opportunity, volunteer jobs can be helpful, but to work, to get into the workforce, you have to get into the workforce. Like you got to get in there and give it a try and, learn from that. And then the term professionalism too, sometimes as a person in recovery, I've sometimes experienced it as a kind of judgy, exclusionary thing. I didn't lack professional behavior, whatever that meant, right? And I think it can be a challenge for a lot of people in recovery. You haven't had that work experience or skills and interactions that you've had up to now. They don't really fit in this environment well. Or, people of color have often been excluded because of professional behavior, So, women too, because showing emotion, professional behavior. So it can be an exclusionary thing. So that's like, I come to with that word with caution, right? I'd like to frame it as understanding kind of what the role expectations are in this role, in this environment. Like, how do I learn, what is expected here? That's what it's not one thing. It really does depend on what role you have, right? And what, the environment you're in. So who can translate that for me? We get to do it ourselves. Like after we've worked in a few places, we're good at reading the cues, right? And we know who to ask. But when we're new to it, we might need a coach or somebody, a mentor, friend to help us, or a really invested supervisor to bring us along, right? And that happens by chance for a lot of people. So, people in recovery do want to work. That's like something I've seen almost universal. People want to experience some success in their job. They also want to experience satisfaction. It's funny, I've heard this quote twice in the last 2 days after not hearing it. I don't remember hearing it for years. And this is the quote: "Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life." Have you heard that before? Twice in the last 2 days. That's not what employment is all about. I always say work is a 4-letter word. It's like it's a part of our life, a huge part of our life, but we can't expect to draw all of our pleasure, meaning, and identity from it. And helping people in recovery keep it at the right size, help. Yeah. So there's that. Like, people might also, separate from the kind of healing process, people might, really lack experience, work experience, really lack, huge gaps in their resume. May lack education, may even lack documentation, right? Housing, maybe experiencing homeless, and where to start. I always say start with work. Yes, housing, make sure they're in a safe, a good enough place for now, but work is important. Because to get ready, really is to do it. And success or fail, with support and, self-reflection, you really come out of that experience more knowledgeable about yourself as a worker, much more knowledgeable about what kind of qualities of a job is important to me, right? I worked with a kid who, after getting fired from 2 fast food restaurants, discovered really doesn't like having a supervisor nearby. He liked something, what he called situational mobility, a job that he could move around more. And that made it easier to kind of hone in on a job he might succeed at, So anyway, I could talk all day, but we have great speakers to draw from their experiences and their success at work. We're going to begin with Julia. And thank you, Julia.
Thanks, Cheryl. Just listening to you speak made me think of so many different things that I could talk about. First, I just want to apologize for my voice being a little hoarse. Been going through an illness this past week, but I'm recovering. So being a person, I would identify myself as being in early recovery, especially with the peers that I'm on this panel with. When I'm entering into recovery, fresh out of treatment, working it's a big fear for me. I'm wondering, how am I going to find a job that's going to overlook my criminal background, that's going to be willing to forgive, this long list of things that I have. And I start to think that I'm not good enough. I'm going to have to settle for employment. And that's what I did for the longest time. So, when I finally came across an employer who was willing to give me a chance, I realized at that point how crucial having a fulfilling job was for me to my recovery. It did so much for me. It made me feel good about myself. It gave me self-esteem. So, later on down the road, I'm in this position where I am able to help people like me who are just starting out. They have nothing. They're trying to figure out how they can give their life meaning, how they can take care of their family. And I want to sit down with them and say, okay, let's figure out how to get you fulfillment. But it's been a real eye-opener for me with the people that I've worked with. I have to sit down with them and they ask me tough questions that sometimes I don't know how to answer. They ask me, how am I going to be able to balance employment and be a good mother, a good father? How am I going to get employment when I don't even have a cell phone? I don't know how to use email. How am I going to get a job when I don't have a mailing address? I don't have the ID and social. So there's just been so many little puzzle pieces that we've had to figure out together. And many times I don't have the answer. So that's one thing that I really want to advocate for today is how do we help our people get to employment rather than just telling people, okay, you need to get a job. We have to look at this realistically and realize people are thinking about surviving. They're trying to come up with all these things to make sure that they can lay their head down at night, keep their family safe. So I have learned it's best to utilize resources and then combine support together. But that's a tough thing to deal with, especially in Kentucky in the rural area that I'm in. So yeah, I think that's all I've got right now. Thank you. I will pass it to Raquel.
Thanks, Julia. I do remember being in long-term recovery. First of all, thanks for joining us today, everyone, and spending some of your day with us. I kind of want to ask the community at large, what is one thing that you struggled with? And you can use the chat, we can read it. What's one thing that you struggled with when entering the workforce, even if you weren't in recovery? I have some teenagers and I think about the things that they struggle with, resume building. And my son most recently had to advocate for himself at his job because he felt like he was being taken advantage of by another employee. And so, some things are recovery based, but some things are just like, take yourself way back there, back to when you first had a job. And when I think about the struggles and where I was, I've been sober a little while and I've been at this for a while. And I think of the things that were scariest to me was like having conversations with somebody. How do I introduce myself? How do I conduct myself in an interview? What do I sound like? Do I come across as someone who knows what they're talking about? And those things kind of were really stumbling blocks for me in early recovery, enough that I didn't really go out much, that I stayed inside. My first exercises in how to speak or what I wanted to say, I used cashiers. Cashiers at gas stations, cashiers at the store, because they really didn't know me before. And so I would try to use them to teach myself eye contact, how to look somebody in the eye. When I first got sober, my sponsor said to me, Raquel, you always look down at your toes. Every time I talk to you, you put your head down. And I didn't realize I had done that. Simple things that I didn't know that I was doing. And I practiced with cashiers. So when I would give my money, I would hand them my money and look at them in the eye and practice new skills. And that kind of leads me into this idea of mentorship and sponsorship or coaching. I'm somebody even now that who does this work for a living, who still uses a coach. And actually yesterday, I had an experience where I had to be told, sometimes, Raquel, not everything you want to do has to be done in this moment. I was like, oh my goodness. Me, I have all these ideas. I need to ooze them around the world. And sometimes I need somebody who can be reflective and say, hey, Raquel, it's a great idea, but maybe you should put that on a shelf for just now. And I really need that, even at 12 years, even with a degree, even with all these things. Those things don't change at, Julia newer in recovery than me at 12 years. And to be honest, I think that's what keeps the longevity of me being able to stay in my recovery and stay loving this work, is that I keep mentorship, Stephen, in my life, and Cheryl, new to my life. I work with a coach who's also in recovery who works with me outside. I have coaching for professional. And, again, I had shared with the team before we got started, most recently doing this work, I experienced a secondary trauma working with somebody that I wasn't expecting. And so also self-checking myself requires me to get a therapist again to do some work so that doesn't affect my work and trickle to my family. Mentorship is really important. Looking for those people in life. What worked in early recovery, you can actually transcend that into your work life, right? If in early recovery you had a sponsor, then maybe you need a sponsor in your professional life or a mentor in your professional life to help help guide you. That has really probably been the most powerful piece of my recovery and of my professional career, is that I do not have guidance around me. I look for people who have something I want. They have a career maybe that interests me, that I want to follow. Sometimes I realize the way they work with people, or I'm trying to adopt their language, because part of recovery for me was kind of recreating myself and getting the best part of all the people in my life and taking the things that I loved from them and building myself. And I needed people also in my life that are willing to be honest with me. In early recovery, sometimes I'll never forget this experience. Actually, I was not working on my recovery, hadn't really found the moment yet. And I was inside a psych facility. And I'll never forget this lady telling me, open your mouth and put the pills in your mouth. And so I did. And she told me, ma'am, I think you need to brush your tongue. And I was so insulted. I was like, oh my gosh, how dare she? She wasn't saying it to be mean to me. She was saying it to me because I wasn't taking care of myself. And she said it actually very kind to me. I went back actually to that lady and told her, thank you for saying that most people probably would have just let me walk around unclean or unkept. And I was really grateful for someone like that in my life. And so someone who's really willing to be honest with us in how we're received. Sometimes our intentions are always good, but the way we're received could be maybe not the right. It's not received the way we would want it to be received. And I think that has been the key to my recovery and to my professional career, is that I've kept people. I haven't really changed much from the beginning to the end. And I keep that consistency and practice that in all of my affairs. So I really think that mentorship and coaching and that type of thing is really important. It's been supportive for me.
Wow. That's a fantastic kickoff to this discussion. I want to go back to Cheryl for a minute. We're going to hit Q&A here in about 10 minutes, but I wanted to come back to Cheryl for a minute because I know, Cheryl, I think you have some, after you've heard Julia and Raquel, as much time as you and I have spent together, I think you probably have some stuff on your mind. Can you share a little bit?
When I listen to you, Julia, and just kind of tick off all the potential barriers, and there are some folks who have all of them, and no resources or supports to help them acquire those, and the expectations are, talk about a setup. If we don't have people like Julia, other people who can really help people in this period of crisis. The thing about reentry programs, for the most part, for most people, it's pretty time limited. It might be very intense for a time, but it's not forever. People get their feet underneath them, sometimes slowly if there's a lot of, treatment that needs to happen, medical care or treatment for substance use, it can take a while. But the real reentry things, helping with, people getting documentation and employment and a place to live, like the most important things. And, just recognizing if we really hold work up as an important part of recovery, we got to help people get to that first rung. Some people are starting in a hole, if we use a ladder analogy, they're in the hole. We got to help them kind of get to that first rung so they have that opportunity.
Well, I was thinking too of that purpose piece, right, Cheryl? Like what you were talking about, Julia, is such an important piece, because otherwise you were talking about people getting up out of the hole. And I also think some people just keep swirling, and that doesn't make us feel any better either. So finding some sort of purpose for our lives, I think, is really a huge important. I think that was a spring for me when I realized I could do something with all of this stuff that I had. I think that was huge. And I think it is those little moments, like even just the mentorship. It's like, how do I stumble through that with somebody that will let me stumble through that early stuff, Julia, someone that can help me. I just did the same thing with somebody, helping them find sober living, and we didn't have documentation and things like that. And it's removing the shame of not knowing. really, you know?
Yeah. And that was what the other thing I was going to mention is the importance of having a person or persons, maybe for different parts of your life, who can help you, like help you concretely. Julia, you don't have to know, but we can look it up together. Let's try to discover how to do that together. What does that involve? You know, we'll learn together.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the things about my experience in my job now that I'm most grateful for. It was easy in the beginning to, honestly sit there and almost get cynical and pessimistic at times, thinking about the mountain of problems and issues that these people are supposed to overcome to lead a happy and successful life. And, I would go home at night and wonder, how am I going to help somebody achieve this? Now months down the road, it's relieving, and it's amazing to realize that, if you are that support person and you help them find those resources, and yes, sometimes it takes some really deep digging, but it is possible, no matter how low you are starting. It takes a lot of tough work. And sometimes people don't want to hear, oh, it gets better. Oh, just wait.
Right.
You have to put in the work together, but it's completely possible. And it's a beautiful thing at the end to see what people can do, to get to their potential.
Yeah.
Well, and it's when I first got sober, there was no peer support. I got sober by myself. Came home to a drinking husband with 3 children, finding out I'm pregnant with my 4th. There was no such thing as peer support to help me figure out anything. That was a long, lonely road. And I think that that's the other part, is we can not be alone in that part. And that was a very desert moment for me as a mother with 4 kids and a drinking husband. I had nothing. I sat at knitting groups in libraries because I didn't know what else to do. But not everybody has that, And so I think that's the power of peer support. And what we do is we can remove lonely. We can help with, not remove it, but help, with that lonely piece of having to go through this and figure it out by ourselves. And what a great moment in time we are right now that it's being recognized as a professional thing to be able to support people. I really wish this was, it really probably would have helped me in those first 2 years of recovery where I was really struggling. So I'm so grateful that it exists now at this level. It's amazing to see.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you just touched on that. In my early recovery, I didn't reach out to peer support, not because it wasn't available, but because I was afraid that the pathway of recovery that I chose, if I put that out there about myself, I was so afraid of the stigma and what that backlash would cause on me, not only just for my own recovery, but for my family, for employment, for any of the dreams that I had for my life. So it's amazing and it's so crucial to get the word out there that there's peer support for no matter what kind of pathway you choose. There's people out there who will help you every step of the way.
Great. I did want to circle back, if it's okay, to the question that Raquel asked. A lot of people responded to, what did you struggle when you first came into work? And people were talking about, speaking up for themselves, advocating for themselves, little things like how to use Microsoft, like imposter syndrome, just not understanding a lot of different things, a lot of self-confidence.
I love the one that says, I'm explaining the huge gap in my employment history was very awkward. And I can imagine, to be honest, Ryan, that you and I having this conversation where we could exercise that first. Like, I don't know, what would you say? How would you have said that differently? What would you, practicing that before, because we always stumble over that awkwardness. I just wanted to bring that because that is awkward. Even as a mom, I was at home. That's what I did. I drank and I was at home. I don't know what to tell you. That's what I did. So that wasn't really going to work in an interview. So getting a little creative with that, it was really helpful.
Yep. So there are actually 3 generic solutions. You can deny the problem, say, really, I was, working as employed as a full-time mother at home, running 4 active kids. So deny it's even a problem. You can minimize it, or you can turn it into an asset. yes, that was when I was really struggling. Now I'm a person in recovery, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's a little tricky to finesse that, but there are some things you can turn into an asset. So we practice. But
It's
what's the
doable.
strategy. All right, let's play it.
Yeah, it's doable, Cheryl. And you know, as I'm listening to the three of you, I'm just thinking about, you know, my own journey, what that meant. And, you know, honestly, until I hit here, C4 Innovations, and really sort of the behavioral health field, my expectation around work was really around sort of the kind of having a manufacturing, a factory background. It's how I did most of my work when I could actually work. And the kind of soft skills, sort of employability skills, if you want to call them that you get in factory work, aren't particularly well suited to how you're going to engage in a sort of professional environment like a behavioral health organization. And part of the sort of culture of poverty and addiction that came with me as I moved through recovery also played out in the work environment. And here's what I mean by that. You know, I'm a person with a long-term opioid use disorder, and one that I have been, incarcerated over. And most of my adult life, I found myself defending almost everything about me from people who really would like to do things like send me to jail. And that defensive sort of position, I still have. And it took me a very long time to even be able to have somebody from my work, a colleague, give me some constructive criticism without me defaulting to a defensive sort of position, and then misreading the entire situation in a way that caused a reaction from me that really was over the top, usually an anger reaction. Because for me, it was always, you know, if you reach the stage of conflict, it's over. And one of the things about working with peers, being mentored by folks like Cheryl, by folks like Raquel, by my teammates at C4, is that, you know, you don't have to just burn down the house in a conflict. You can resolve it and continue a relationship. That's a huge deal for some of us to learn, because this is why I'm still sitting here and I haven't left or been fired. That's the reason.
Well, I think there are a couple of things you do very well, Stephen. And I mean, I don't want to single you out. We all, or many of us, have trauma reactions while on the job. You know, events conspire with something going on with us, and we react in a very, you know, surprising way. We might be surprised, certainly the other person is surprised. So I think when that happens, you know, the two things, one is, you know, getting good at apologizing, like genuinely and sincerely. You did not deserve this. Clean up your mess right away. Like, people do, you know, are hurt by that. So when you're ready, it might not be immediately, it might be, you know, it might be by email, but genuinely, you know, apologize for the impact of your behavior. And then the second, even more important, is self-compassion, because what happens after that is the shame, and the shame is what kills us. So if you can't bring some, you know, loving kindness, self-compassion, some forgiveness, have someone who does that for you, with you, that's got to be the next step. Right. So I think if we get those two skills down, then we're really we can manage like irregular responses. You know, I think, you know, and just understanding we do the best we can.
Yes.
You know, if we're doing the best we can, you know, if we really can. Yeah. So I'm hoping there are questions, because we've said so much today.
So there are a couple, and I'm going to shoot them out. But folks out there who are listening, absolutely, this is an opportunity. Pop it in the chat. Everybody here will respond to that. And so let me just throw out this first question, and it really is kind of focused on you, Julia, first. But I invite all three of you to respond to this. Can you talk about what made the most difference for you, Julia? What was the most important thing, if there is one thing or things that helped you move into your work with confidence?
For me, the thing that I think of initially, and I almost think that it sounds cliche until you experience it. It's kind of what Raquel's been talking about, the mentorship. I've been through so many different kinds of employment, trying to figure out what's going to be right for me. What am I meant to do? I'm always asking myself that question my whole life. And when I first started to experience mentorship, a role model of somebody who could look at me with, and know everything about, well, maybe not everything, but knew enough about my past and the things that I was not so proud of. And they were able to look at me and say, you can do this, you can do whatever you want to. It inspired within me. It really just lit like a fire. And from that first moment where I had somebody working with me, and I had this experience when I was in college, and I was so grateful for that. I had a professor who sat down with me and helped me apply for jobs. He would sit down with me and talk about, what do you really want to do with your life? That's when I realized how crucial it was to not only have a person be there for you, to support you through these little walks of things that you don't know how to do yet, but to also figure out what is going to give you fulfillment. Because yes, I know that everybody needs some form of income to keep going in their life. But if you're a person in recovery, that fulfillment and that purpose is a crucial part of the recovery capital. That is what's going to keep you going at the end of the day. And today I have a job where it's certainly, there's days that are difficult. There's days where I go home and I wonder if I've done enough, but there's also, every single day I know that I'm doing the best that I can. I'm making a little bit of a difference with somebody who maybe at the beginning of that morning didn't have much hope. And I remember exactly how that felt like. So to some degree, I'm able to be that person like somebody was for me not so long ago. And in turn, that helps me. So.
Wow. Julia, that was fabulous.
Thank you.
Just fabulous. Cheryl, Raquel, thoughts?
Confidence in doing it. Cheryl said that earlier, like sometimes the confidence is when I get confident, then I tried that and that kept me trapped on the other side of this, like doing the thing. So what made me confident was doing it, was finding, Julia's right. I found some people that were willing to give me a chance, and I buckled up underneath their arm and just never left. I even told my sponsor when I first got her years ago, like, I'm stuck with you. She's been stuck with me for 9 years. And when I find a good person, I just hold on to them real tight. And, people who've done this work, they want to share their wisdom. They want to help you be successful at what you do for the most part. And so I find those people like Stephen and like Cheryl, and I hold on to them tightly. I saw someone in the chat had asked about looking to make things more attractive and make things easier for folks to start. I think we just said it again. It's like grabbing them a peer or a mentor or somebody that can support them, because Sometimes it feels like we're on islands doing this work, that we're out here. And so the more we can make people feel connected, I run a virtual practice. 90% of what we do, we never see our clients, and I don't see my team. And so that takes a lot of work at making sure that we have an environment, even virtually, that people want to stay a part of, not just our people that we take care of, but also the people that I'm taking care of, and making sure that as a leader, I try to be the person who takes care of the people, who take care of the people first. I have to make sure that my peers that are taking care of the ones coming in are well taken care of. It's really important because I have to take care of me. The weight kind of falls downhill that way. And so practicing what I preach also is another thing that kind of helps out, as far as making sure that your peer people want to stay. They want to see reflective leadership. So I think that is a big thing. I saw Clay against that. So I just wanted to answer it while I had a little bit of the floor.
Fabulous. And Cheryl, anything to add? I've got a couple more questions, but I just want to let you chime in. And you're muted. There you go.
But some of it has, again, like being older and looking at career trajectory, was getting better at selecting jobs that I would succeed at. Like, I think when you're young, you're willing to give like anything a go. I'll try it. And that's good. Like, I totally agree with the statements, like, don't wait to be comfortable. I never would have moved to the other side, right? Like, just do it and deal with the fallout, after. And don't, comfort isn't a real value of mine, but other things are important. I like a lot of autonomy. I don't like to be too answerable to someone. These are like things I've learned about myself, and I like to collaborate with boundaries. And so I've been able to select jobs where there is more autonomy, and it works for me. And I think whatever it is for you, like, we do have to make different choices in recovery sometimes. Like, I know chefs who really couldn't work in a big kitchen anymore, and went into things like personal chef or catering, or where there'd be less alcohol, frankly, and cocaine, whatever. The environment's different. And people who work construction, who there are even like drug-free, alcohol-free crews with a lot of big companies run. People either just choose to be there, or they're people in recovery. So it can be tricky, Well,
I also think too, there's this new movement about finding recovery-friendly employers. I know in my area, I live in Douglas County, Colorado, is not popular for recovery support, but we are getting it. They're starting to listen and make some headway as being the people that they get to see in recovery, that we do recover and we speak well and we can go to school and do all of those things. And so I think right now we are going to go shake some hands with employers and inform them of what recovery is about. Maybe if you're supportive and you let your guys go to a meeting at noon, they come to the meeting at noon, they go back to work, maybe that's something that you could be supportive of. And I think creating those partnerships in your small communities, because every single one of us can do that within a 5-mile radius of where we're at, is if we're willing to be bold, can we share our little story with a small business and say, if you're ever open to it, we'd love to add you to the list of recovery-friendly employers. And I think that's a definite way, an immediate way. I bet you within 3 weeks, I bet you I get a bunch of emails from all of you. Go out there, try that. Let me know. I'd love to know how that works out for you.
Well, back in the day, I can talk about something decades ago that we did an employer breakfast. We invited potential employers to come, and usually someone from HR came. Sometimes it was a tiny company, it was the owner, but it was really just to open up their heads and help us sort of brainstorm ways into other employees. They think like employers, not like, like us, right? So, to help us sort of brainstorm. Most every one of them who came to our employee breakfast also did hire somebody who, was living with serious mental illness. But, usually you found out, they had a brother, or they have a cousin, their best friend's son, or there was always some human connection. And that's how we kind of got a mass of employers who were open to it, But it was, yeah, a little breakfast, little muffins, coffee, conversation.
Well, I see this and I,
8 o'clock.
I am thinking of the work that Julia's doing right now, the work that you're doing, Raquel, the work that Cheryl and I do are, we're at it's not a higher level, it's a different level. And we don't have the opportunity, I think, I should just speak for myself, but I don't have a lot of opportunity where I'm able to coach, mentor, and support my brothers and sisters around me in recovery because I don't have that many folks around me. And it's more because I'm isolated and I live, I'm a frontier employee and I'm out here doing my own thing and I have my own connections right here. But what is encouraging, I think, is that, putting Julia, putting Raquel, having Cheryl training the Julias and Raquels and the Stevens of the world as we sort of evolve recovery and even discovery, which I feel is sort of the next step after recovery, which is, you're always going to be in recovery, but I think at this level, what I'm experiencing is discovery. It's about things that I wanted to be able to do and know, but I, for whatever reason, and typically it was because I was so intoxicated I couldn't, but these are the things that I wanted in my life. And those things are happening now, but it took a lot of work. And what it really took was coaching and mentoring that's ongoing. It continues to this day. And as you evolve in those sort of executive level skills, the coaching changes and how you see yourself changes. And the people that are doing the coaching changes a little bit, which for me signals success, signals growth, right? Those are the things that, I can tell I'm advancing. Of course, when you get offered a job that pays you a decent wage, that's a pretty nice incentive too. And it tells you, you're arriving. But it was really around coaching, mentoring, having an organization where I felt included. And I often say at my work, this is the first company I've ever worked for where I'm really on the inside and I feel that way. I'm not on the outside looking in through the window. That's a huge deal for me. And it means a lot. And also, I'll just add this. If you want to establish some loyalty in your employees, treat them with dignity and respect. Do some coaching and help them grow, particularly those of us in recovery. And especially those who are re-entering from jail or prison will be the best dang employees you ever saw because you trusted us. And we understand that. I think Julia raised, she mentioned at the start of her conversation that, she didn't know. How do you, I didn't have any of that. And, it was her company that took this chance, almost this risk on her. I feel the same way about what C4 did for me too.
So somebody put in a question and not in the chat box from our Q&A. So I want to read it to you. I'm delighted. What are some of the essential general worker skills that you think are important to help peers stay or get employed? And kind of the general worker skills are those that kind of everyone needs to have to get hired, that they usually have to do with, just what are those? What do you think people need to really have to get employed? Some example might be, have a work ordered day so you can show up on time. Being able to come to meet the expectations by being dependable.
I think asking the expectations, what are the expectations?
Yeah, clarifying expectations. I think that's I
think that's the question we forget to ask more than anything. And then we constantly are trying to live up to something we never even asked about. So I think asking what are the expectations.
Pretend we might know, I'm not going to,
or we assume we do.
Know that. Yeah, or we assume exactly. Right. So clarifying expectations and having that as something we do just by kind of automatically whenever we're told what to do. It's a great skill. Sometimes in early recovery, you're so stirred up by being in the presence of your supervisor, because, you know, authority can be frightening, that you're not really able, you know.
I'm gonna put a card on the table that people don't like to talk about, just because that's who I am, and it's hygiene too. We have to make sure that we are clean and presentable, and that's a challenge because it's a hard conversation to have with people. It makes us uncomfortable to have it, just like it is to hear it. We don't want to have it with people, but I think we do an injustice. I actually had someone, like I said, about the tongue, brushing my teeth type thing. Like, we see it as, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm glad you did, because
Right.
you know, it's kind. It's actually kind for people to share that with you, instead of being offended.
Right. And certainly our work in peer support it has been in the past, maybe now with virtual relationships, hygiene's fallen off the table. It doesn't matter at all, but it used to be a really essential skill, right?
Yeah, most
How
people
many
are
of
dressed
you
from
have
about here
found
up,
them?
and everyone else is in yoga pants.
Right.
Pretty much how it is right now for,
Yeah.
I bet, some of us on this event.
Most of us could admit our hygiene is, you know, has flagged a little bit since the start of
Well, you know,
yeah.
to
Some
that
people don't know
question,
how, some people don't know the resources, some people don't know the expectations, so really clarifying them, right?
Well,
Exactly.
I'm glad we brought that.
Doesn't matter.
If you
right?
look at the chat, that was a good conversation, that card. See, it's
Yeah.
obviously something people are struggling with, is
Yeah.
to talk about that hygiene piece. I've had teenagers who come live with me whom have lived with family members who've neglected them. And so they've learned to neglect themselves because of that, and it trickles downhill. And
Yeah.
having that conversation is very difficult. Practicing it with someone else first to see how it's received might be a benefit, but having that conversation, and I've had to have that conversation with young girls about that. And it is a delicate thing, but I will tell you, the results are they feel so much more loved after that.
Mhm.
So I think practicing that, you know, someone had asked, it is hard to have that conversation.
Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah.
Julia, are you trying to chime in here?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go off on a different tangent of another thing that I think is really important. And I think probably many of us take it for granted, but it's especially crucial in the world of COVID, is the training for technology. So I know so many peers who are absolutely brilliant and have the potential to help so many people, but they don't know how to professionally or even maybe adequately use email, you know, have a normal phone conversation, things like that. So we really need to work on getting people prepared to use technology.
Absolutely. So important, more and more. Yeah.
Mhm.
And even providing resources, because if you think about the wages people who provide peer support make, there's no way they're buying cell phones and computers. You know, the agency really needs to provide those resources.
Right.
Other essentials, so, you know, anything to do with interpersonal skills or.
Well, Cheryl, in the chat, you know, I keep seeing, I actually saw the term imposter syndrome, which is, you know, stands out to me. But there are a number of comments that reflect that, right? This sort of imposter syndrome kind of sense. And, you know, I mean, to be honest, I do that today. There are plenty of things around imposter syndrome that had I allowed it, would keep me from doing many, many things. And I think I had a conversation many years ago with you and another colleague, and we were at a conference. And I remember, and I was new to the organization, new to this work. And I remember saying, oh my God, I can't do this. This is so far beyond me. And you and that other colleague both looked at me and said, Stephen, we still say that. In fact, not only do we say that, but we even prepare to quit before they can fire us because we deal with this imposter syndrome too. So get over it. That's basically kind of the end of that conversation. But I never forgot that. And it inspired and it motivated me to do it anyway. And sometimes we just have to go out and do it.
Yeah. I do want to say something. Stephanie put in the box frustration tolerance. You can learn skills, but there are times in our recovery, and particularly early recovery, when just like, it continues to be sort of driven by some, wiring or neurotransmitter activity. There's a high level of irritability. There's really very little time. The frontal lobe is not well wired into the amygdala yet, we'll say. So they're just not communicating. So the brakes aren't quite there like they will be when you learn some skills and some time passes. But those kind of self behavior management, kind of self-regulation skills. How do I, not express? I mean, some environments you can, slam something down on the table, but most peer support environments tend to be mellower.
Yeah.
Cheryl, you
Probably
said an
not.
important skill is we have to learn to be able to take direction and correction without taking it personal and being offended. And because we are really a sensitive people, us recovered.
Mhm.
And so when someone may say, hey, Raquel, I need it to be this way or that way, how hard that is for us to hear that and not think I'm a horrible person, I did things wrong, that this person's really just being my supervisor and kind of doing their job. And I think that's a real big challenge, is how do we take accountability and direction? And there are now expectations on us that, sometimes in this world of recovery, we say, well, we don't do expectations. But employers kind of have those.
Oh no, yeah, I know that.
And so I think we got to be realistic about that. And I think that may be a struggle. It was hard for me at first to take direction and that type of thing. That was a struggle.
And I have to say, in environments where the expectations are less explicit, I'm nervous. I feel anxious when I don't know what's expected, right? I do well when there's some clarity. I think when it's more implicit understanding, I might be more paralyzed. I'm not sure what's most. So I think that's, something, making expectations explicit. And just those again, having anger management training or stress management training isn't going to be enough, because it takes years sometimes to learn how to apply those skills or to be able to do it consistently where you
and adequately. Yes.
Yeah, just being able to do it when you need to and have. So it's rough, and again, the most important skills from that is apologizing and self-compassion. If we can do that, we can survive those rough points, right? Yeah, and people help us not dwell on it, right?
Exactly.
Move forward. Yeah.
So I got to bring us to a close, and okay. I'm so bummed that I have to close this. So folks, first I need to thank Raquel and Julia and Cheryl for coming and spending their time today. And these are really challenging conversations. There's they can be sensitive, they can give us things where we can get defensive around it. But ultimately, and I think this showed from the chat, this is an issue that I think we all are grappling with and trying to address. We don't talk about it very often. I'm not sure why, and we're going to try and change that. But it was really important to see the comments in the chat as well, because it just sort of validated that yes, this is not just something that the four of us on this event understand and have dealt with. So to Raquel and Julia and Cheryl, thank you guys. I mean, it was really important that we're here today. For everybody who is with us, please know, if we've got resources from either Cheryl, Julia, or Raquel, we'll make sure that they go out to all of you today. We also hope that you'll consider joining us for our February Recovery Live, where we're going to talk a little bit about homelessness and mental illness and what it means to support our brothers and sisters on the street. And don't forget, a link to a satisfaction survey is going to pop up when you close this. We pay attention. That's why Recovery Live is the way it is because we listen to you. And we really hope you'll give us some feedback on this presentation today and any recommendations you think we should consider. Also, please consider reaching out to us. We'll do training, we'll do TA, technical assistance, and we'll talk through any kind of brainstorming session you'd like to about what might be needed. And with that, thank you all for joining today's session. Thanks again to my awesome speakers, and we'll see you next month in February. Take care all.